I've just read a story. Trent Alexander-Arnold talking about Arne Slot. This story is so enlightening about the work rate, the determination and the attention to detail that is on display from Arne Slot at all times. And when you think about what Arne Slot has done at Liverpool, I simply don't think we talk about this enough. What we are witnessing is simply breathtaking. It's historic. Played 20, won 18, drew 1, lost 1. That record is simply stunning. So now we have to analyse Arne Slot himself. And look, when you read about him, you immediately deduce that he is a good man. He rather self-deprecatingly tells us that he hasn't had to change much. At Liverpool, he's referred to his contribution as tweaks. Now, the implication here is that he hasn't had to change much because Jurgen Klopp is such a good manager and left him in such a privileged position. And of course, on some level, that is totally true. Jurgen Klopp was a genius. During his time in the Premier League, I would often make the case that pound for pound, he was the best manager in the league. And there is no doubt that the foundations laid by Jurgen Klopp for Arne Slot to inherit were strikingly strong. But the question is, were they this sturdy? I would argue possibly not. The reason that Liverpool sit at the top of the league, in fact, sit at the top of 2 leagues, is Arne Slot's wisdom. The ideals instilled in this squad by Arne Slot and his coaching team, Sipka Hulsoft, Johnny Heitinger and Aaron Briggs, need to be acknowledged as well. And what they have done this week really does need to be acknowledged. Like, can you imagine being a Liverpool fan this week? You have watched your team demolish Real Madrid and think of everything that that represents. It felt like Real Madrid had a little bit of a hoodoo over Liverpool. Whenever the two teams have met, Real Madrid came out on top. Regardless of what was deserved, Real Madrid would always find a way to eclipse Liverpool. But Arne Slot ended that like that. But then everyone who has seen their team compete in the Champions League knows how difficult it is to win a game in the Champions League in midweek and follow it up with victory on the weekend, particularly when the team you are facing on the weekend is Manchester City. To go from Real Madrid to Manchester City and secure 2 victories is absolutely unbelievable. And what a ride it must be for their fans. Reminds me of a time when I was young. I remember flying directly from Barcelona away to Cardiff to see us play Barcelona to follow it up with victory in Cardiff in a League Cup final. That is the joy of being a football fan. And for Arne Slot to beat those 2 teams is something, but to beat them so convincingly is something else. My mind is genuinely blown. It's got to be the best start that has ever happened in any circumstance, in any club, in anywhere in the world. But how is he doing it? Which now takes me back to that Trent Alexander-Arnold story. So Arne Slot will always instruct his players to play a pass to the back foot of the receiving player. Gives them that little bit of extra second to control the ball, and it should do your balance a world of good as well. So Slot's demand, and demand is the right word here, is that the ball finds the back foot of the receiving player with every pass. Now, if on occasion that doesn't happen, Arne Slot will interrupt training and demand an answer as to why that pass didn't go to the back foot of the receiving player. Now, it feels like quite a small and incidental example, but I think we can learn an awful lot from Arne Slot in these words from Trent Alexander-Arnold. Basically, what we can glean is that Arne Slot is a perfectionist. Meticulous detail. Nothing less than the very best is accepted. Giving every single crevice of every single moment of every single match the due diligence that it deserves. And it is that fastidious approach that is having such an impact on this Liverpool team. Look at what's happened to certain players. I mean, it's all very well for Arne Slot to kindly and generously say that he's only had to make a few tweaks and the team was already brilliant. He's only changed a few things, paying homage to the exceptional work that Jurgen Klopp did. And all of that is true. He has changed it. He's redefined certain players. Look at his impact on Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk is playing football in a totally different way. No longer is he just a defender. No longer are his responsibilities simply to stop opposition forwards. He is a defender when Liverpool need him to defend, but an attacker when Liverpool need him to attack. The way that he plays the game, now bear with me on this comparison because trust me, it's accurate, but it's not going to sound like it initially. He reminds me of David Luiz. Don't go anywhere. Trust me, let me land at least. In the year where we played 3 at the back and David Luiz was in the centre position alongside Gary Cahill and Cesar Azpilicueta, David Luiz was exceptional that year. Part of the reason, in fact, one of the integral reasons that we won the league that year was because of the exceptional performances of David Luiz. Now, he played a very hybrid role, and that is what we are seeing from Virgil van Dijk. David Luiz used to defend like John Terry, but then start our attacks like Cesc Fabregas. He would win the ball and drive forward, Franz Beckenbauer-like. He would win a tackle, but then spray the ball 40 yards to Pedro. That is what we are seeing from Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk is a defender when Liverpool defend and an attacker when they need him to attack. He is defending as resolutely as anyone has ever defended in the Premier League, and yet he is starting attacks in an incredibly creative way. People often compare Virgil van Dijk pre and post that Jordan Pickford injury, and I think that it is fair now to conclude that this is the best iteration of Virgil van Dijk that we have ever seen. Defending with the vigour of John Terry and starting attacks with the vision of Cesc Fabregas. That is what Virgil van Dijk is doing, and full credit to Virgil van Dijk. But we must acknowledge the tactics and the coaching and the freedom from Arne Slot instilled in this team to allow that to come to fruition. We are seeing a range of passing from Virgil van Dijk that I don't think we've seen before. How many times is he going to set Luis Diaz on his way, give Mohamed Salah the freedom of the park? If you want to try and understand how good a manager is, simply ask yourself, how many players look better under his tutelage? It really is that simple. Are players elevated because of the coaching methods of a new manager? And with Arne Slot, I think the answer is a resounding yes. Curtis Jones is a better player this season than he was last season. Ryan Gravenberch felt like a bit part player under Jurgen Klopp, a player who was potentially superfluous. Suddenly, he is integral, one of the best players in his position in world football. Ibrahima Konate, alongside Van Dijk, have now become Liverpool's best ever Premier League defensive partnership. My good friend Adi Oladipo contested this. He said that it wasn't that, and he gave me some other suggestions, Carragher, Hyypiä, Honcho, whatever else. But I am convinced that the best Liverpool Premier League partnership is Ibrahima Konate and Virgil van Dijk. Under what manager? Arne Slot. Luis Diaz. I mean, what a player he has turned into this season. Playing as a number 9. Giving Erling Haaland an education as to how to play the number 9 role. There is also another test. Alongside the one that I have just demonstrated, there is another test, a really, really basic test, to try and demonstrate and come up with an equation to work out, is this manager doing the business? And again, it doesn't tell us the full story, but it enough gives us an inkling as to how things are going. The mini league. You create a mini league, you look at your rivals, you look at the teams that you're competing against, and you create a mini league. How are you doing against those sides? So the mini league for Liverpool that we should create, off the top of my head here, would be Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal. Sound about right? Let's do it. They have taken 10 points from 4 games against those sides. They haven't yet played Tottenham. In the same set of fixtures from last season, so 10 games, not 4 games, 10 games, they took 12 points. They have already taken 10 points from 4 games. So it's 10 points from 4 games this season, 12 points from 10 games last season. Dear God, that's striking, isn't it? That's actually blown my mind. So they're top of the Premier League. They're top of the Champions League. They've got a quarter-final of the Carabao Cup to come, and his win rate is a ridiculous 90%. 90% of games that Liverpool take place in, Liverpool win 90% of their games. 90. There is one slight warning sign for Liverpool. As impressive as they are this season, they did pretty much, not quite to the same extent, but they did pretty much the same thing at the beginning of last season. If you analyse the first 20 games that they have played this season and the first 20 games that they played last season, there is a direct correlation between the 2 seasons. So I've had a look. In the first 20 games of last season under Jurgen Klopp, Liverpool won 14. There were 4 draws and 2 defeats. But what is very important to remember about the 2 defeats is that one of them was against Tottenham. Remember that game at White Hart Lane when Luis Diaz scored that goal and VAR malfunctioned, and we learned that day that the people operating VAR do not know what day it is. They are completely and utterly inept. Liverpool that day were robbed of 3 points. They were robbed of their 100% record start to the season. So realistically, what we should be saying is out of the first 20 games that Jurgen Klopp played last season, they won 15, which is similar to what's happened this year. Not quite as good, not quite as impressive, not quite as many points, but comparable, right? They were also top of the Europa League, and they had a quarter-final of the Carabao Cup to come. So it's a comparable thing. But for some reason, it all feels so different this year, don't you think? And the difference is one word. That word is control. There was an emotional contribution to Liverpool last year that could be seen through the lens of positivity that may have done them a disservice come the end of the season. This year, there is nothing emotional about them. They are ruthless. They are direct. They are cold. They are efficient. And the word that we have to focus on is control. When you watch a Liverpool game, they are completely and utterly 100% in control of everything that is going on the pitch. The tempo of the game is being dictated by them, and they are totally assured at all times. It doesn't matter whether it's Carlo Ancelotti or Pep Guardiola trying to put their own mark on the game, they cannot get a foothold. And this ruthlessness, this cold-blooded, merciless approach from Arne Slot could steer them so well, because not every game can be a cup final. Not every game can be an emotional roller coaster. And I think that you can argue when Liverpool ran out of steam last year, part of the reason that they did was because of the emotional and physical torment that the squad had been through since the first game of the season. Liverpool were great this time last year, but they didn't demonstrate this level of control. Last season, they were coming from behind a lot, fighting to the bitter end and getting the result that they needed. Whereas this season, it doesn't really feel like that's the case. Like this season, they've only been behind in 6 matches. And when they do fall behind, it's never for very long. 154 minutes. 154 minutes is the total amount of time that Liverpool have been losing games of football this season. Bearing in mind that they lost one of those games and Callum Hudson-Odoi scored with 20 minutes left? So 20 of those 154 minutes were in the defeat. Just think, whenever they've been losing games of football, how long are they behind for? Against Southampton, they were losing for 9 minutes? I remember them going behind to AC Milan away at the San Siro after Pulisic scored early. Felt like they equalised after about 20 minutes? Certainly in the first half, and they actually went in at half-time winning the game. In the League Cup, they went behind to West Ham for about 1 minute before battering them, scoring 5 in return. Basically, it's this level of control that sets them apart from last season. And of course, we have to give Jurgen Klopp a huge amount of credit. The foundations that he laid were strong and sturdy, but the castle that is being built by Arne Slot is breathtakingly good. In the space of 4 days, you're beating Pep Guardiola and Manchester City and Carlo Ancelotti and Real Madrid. I honestly believe that we are witnessing history. And when I think about what Liverpool could actually achieve this season, I can't really see anyone stopping them on any front. I think the bottom line here is that Arne Slot is a fastidious, meticulous genius, and Liverpool will win the Premier League this season. There we have it. Thank you all so much for watching. I've really enjoyed making this video. It's been fascinating to study and learn about Arne Slot in the way that he conducts his business. An absolute genius, a determined, football-obsessed genius. Would love to hear your comments, so please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you've enjoyed this video, it'd be my honour to welcome you into this community. Thank you so much, and yeah, have a lovely day. In a bit.